So, you're thinking about taking a yoga teacher training, or maybe you're just curious about what the process of becoming a yoga teacher is like. This video is for you. We'll be talking about how to become a yoga teacher and what a yoga teacher training is, how to know when you're ready for yoga teacher training, what to expect, some considerations for researching and choosing a yoga teacher training, as well as some advice and answers to frequently asked questions. As the yoga and wellness industry continues to grow, there are more and more yoga teacher trainings popping up all over the place. So I want to make sure that you're informed and ready if you're thinking about making the investment. Before we get started, if you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm Cassidy and I'm a 200-hour certified yoga instructor. I got certified to teach in June 2018 at Alley Cat Yoga in Tomah, Wisconsin. Since then, I've been teaching in studios, in corporate settings, to organizations, and now online. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy today's video, and make sure to leave any questions you have down in the comments below. I've also typed up some show notes for you to either follow along with as we go through the video or to review afterwards. We'll be covering a ton of information in today's video, so make sure to grab your copy from the description down below. First things first, you might be wondering how you actually become a yoga teacher. And the most common way to learn how to teach yoga, at least in the United States, is to take a 200-hour yoga teacher training. And that's what we'll be talking about today. There are other paths to becoming a yoga teacher besides a 200-hour yoga teacher training, but it's definitely the most common and accessible in the West. So we'll be talking about what that process looks like and some considerations in going into your 200-hour yoga teacher training. You might be wondering if you're ready for a yoga teacher training or how to know when you are. There's no defined prerequisites for enrolling in a yoga teacher training, although some programs might suggest having a personal yoga practice for a certain amount of time, say 2 years. If you're passionate about yoga, have a strong personal practice, and a deep desire to learn more about yoga, then chances are you might be ready for a yoga teacher training. In fact, many people take yoga teacher trainings without ever actually intending to teach yoga, simply as a means of deepening their personal practice. Yoga teacher training can be quite a large investment though, so my best recommendation to you is to know your why. If you're just looking to deepen your personal yoga practice, there might be better options for you, like a retreat or taking workshops on different topics that you're interested in. But if you want to share yoga with others, you really feel called to do so, and you're ready to do some inner work and challenge yourself, then go for it. Also, a common misconception is that you have to be able to do certain physical postures in order to become a yoga teacher. And this couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, you should have some sort of a baseline knowledge about the physical practice of yoga and also be prepared to learn more about yoga asana, but by no means do you have to be able to do a headstand or be the most flexible person to be a yoga teacher. There is so much more to yoga, which is part of what you'll learn if you enroll in a 200-hour yoga teacher training. And I think you'll be surprised at the amount of different backgrounds and physical abilities within your training. So there's no reason to feel worried if you think that your physical practice isn't advanced enough. Next, we'll be talking about some different considerations for researching and choosing a yoga teacher training. Like I mentioned before, there are so many yoga teacher trainings out there, so I really hope this information empowers you to find a training that really fits your needs and what you're looking to get out of it. All 200-hour yoga teacher trainings will incorporate 200 hours of education, whether that be through things like lectures, homework assignments, or discussions. And some yoga teacher trainings, if they're registered with certain organizations, might have certain curriculum standards they need to meet, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But there is lots of variation and different formats within 200-hour yoga teacher trainings. So, where do you actually take a yoga teacher training? Yoga teacher trainings are offered by yoga studios, dedicated yoga schools, and individual experienced yoga teachers. A Google search will bring up tons of results for 200-hour yoga teacher trainings, both within your local area and beyond. As far as location goes, you can probably find a yoga teacher training relatively close to you geographically. I did my 200-hour yoga teacher training in Tomah, Wisconsin, about an hour away from my hometown. However, there are many destination options as well, in places like Costa Rica and Bali. These destination trainings can definitely look appealing, but once again, I would just encourage you to know your why. If you feel drawn to attend a destination yoga teacher training, you know that the instructor will be a good fit for you and it's in the budget, great. But remember that a yoga teacher training isn't necessarily going to be a relaxing vacation or getaway. And I would encourage you to look at some of the educational aspects over any tropical landscapes or enticing views. Local trainings can be a cost-effective and accessible option, whereas destination trainings might allow you to step away and immerse yourself more fully in the studies. Once again, it's really just about choosing the option that fits your needs. And of course, we also saw a huge increase in online yoga teacher trainings in the last year or so we'll be talking about that in a little bit. Yoga teacher trainings are also offered in some different schedule formats. The two that you'll probably see most often will be intensive style trainings, where the whole 200 hours takes place over a few weeks to a month, and more spread out trainings, where you'll meet at a set time of weekends or evenings, and the whole process will take months to even a year or so to complete. This is really a personal consideration based on your work and life schedule. Not everyone has the flexibility to take a month away from everyday responsibilities, so a more spread out training that takes place over weekends or evenings might work better for you. Personally, my training was an intensive style training that took place over 3 weeks with about a 3-day break in the middle. Neither one of these options is better than the other, and it's just about what works best for you. But I'll be offering a few pros and cons to each style of training. In an intensive style yoga teacher training, you can really immerse yourself in the content by stepping away from everyday responsibilities and distractions. You'll be treating your yoga teacher training as pretty much a full-time job plus some. An obvious downside to this style is that you might have to take off work, find childcare, or deal with other considerations that come up when essentially taking a few weeks away from regular life. Intensive style yoga teacher trainings can also be just that, intense. You might find yourself getting pretty exhausted or drained by the schedule demands. In a more spread out yoga teacher training, you might benefit from the additional time in between sessions to process and practice what you're learning. However, you might also find yourself distracted or losing focus in between. However, these trainings are clearly the more flexible scheduling option to fit around your everyday responsibilities. I also want to mention that module style yoga teacher trainings are gaining popularity. In a module style yoga teacher training, you would take a specified number of shorter sessions, say one on anatomy, one on philosophy, one on teaching methodology, until you reach the 200-hour and curriculum standards and receive your certification. These can be a really flexible scheduling option and grant you the autonomy to decide how long you want the certification process to take. In fact, I'm looking into a module style yoga teacher training for my 300-hour training, which is next on my list. I also want to quickly touch on Yoga Alliance, what it is and what they do. Yoga Alliance is a nonprofit organization that sets professional standards for yoga and acts as a registration body for both yoga schools and yoga teachers. Yoga Alliance is by far the largest yoga organization in the world, but there are some others that focus on yoga therapy or are based in different countries. If a 200-hour yoga teacher training wants to register with Yoga Alliance as a registered yoga school, their curriculum will need to meet certain standards, and the instructors will need to have a certain amount of education and experience. If you enroll in a 200-hour yoga teacher training with an RYS, a registered yoga school, you'll graduate as a 200-hour CYT, a certified yoga teacher. Then you can optionally choose to register with Yoga Alliance for a yearly fee to become an RYT, a registered yoga teacher. There are lots of opinions on Yoga Alliance and if there should be a governing body of yoga. Personally, I took my 200-hour teacher training with an RYS, a registered yoga school, but have never personally registered with Yoga Alliance as an RYT, simply because I can't justify paying the yearly fee when it hasn't really proven to be necessary to my career as a yoga teacher. That's completely up to you though, and I'd encourage you to do some of your own research. Anyways, many 200-hour yoga teacher trainings are registered with Yoga Alliance, and it can be a decent way of knowing that their curriculum is at least meeting some standards. And Yoga Alliance has plans to start reviewing curriculum a little bit more strictly by 2022, which should be a good thing. There are also some fantastic yoga teacher trainings out there that are not registered with Yoga Alliance. Registered yoga school or not, I would urge you to just do your own research to make sure that the curriculum is comprehensive and worth your investment. Let's talk about online yoga teacher trainings. Online yoga teacher trainings were popping up prior to 2020, but of course with the pandemic, many have transitioned online. There are lots of fully online options, as well as hybrid options that combine in-person and online learning. Overall, online yoga teacher trainings are becoming more prevalent than ever, and I expect this trend will probably continue beyond the pandemic. If a yoga teacher training is a registered yoga school with Yoga Alliance, typically there's a certain amount of contact hours that the training has to meet, meaning hours where you are physically in the presence of your instructor. However, due to COVID, these requirements are currently waived, but they do have requirements for synchronous hours, meaning there's a certain amount of hours that you have to be live learning with your yoga teacher training group. And of course, there are plenty of online yoga teacher trainings that aren't affiliated with Yoga Alliance, so they may or may not have live components. So, is an online yoga teacher training the best option for you? That's for you to decide, but obviously there are some pros and cons to online learning. Online trainings can allow for way more flexibility and accessibility, with reduced costs and the ability to learn from your home. However, you might want to consider the amount of personal attention you'll be getting, opportunities for practice teaching, and community building, which will vary by training. Of course, nothing can truly replace an in-person yoga teacher training. There's definitely something special about being in the presence and energy of fellow teachers in training and getting that type of individual attention from the instructor. But there are definitely some benefits to online trainings, and they can be a great alternative. As always, just make sure that you do research on whatever program you're looking into. You've heard me mention the financial investment of a yoga teacher training throughout this video, but maybe you're wondering what that number actually looks like. And the truth is, it ranges a ton. I've seen online yoga teacher trainings for as low as $200, and destination trainings can easily run thousands of dollars plus room and board. In a super low cost yoga teacher training, especially online, you might want to consider that you might not be getting as much personal attention, you might not get to know your instructors that well, and it's likely that the school is pumping out a ton of new yoga teachers. For some transparency, the cost of my yoga teacher training in 2018 for a 3-week intensive was $2,600 with options for referral and early bird discounts. A general range that a lot of in-person 200-hour yoga teacher trainings might fall into is somewhere from $1,500 to $3,000. And if this seems like a pretty large investment, it really is. And you need to be passionate and serious about taking a yoga teacher training before you decide to enroll. And remember that the tuition of your teacher training covers 200 hours with your instructor, as well as facility fees, online hosting, guest teachers, and more. In addition to the cost of tuition, it's also important to know what other fees and expenses there are. For instance, if you're traveling to your 200-hour yoga teacher training, you'll need to consider the cost of room and board plus transportation. There's also usually a required reading list, which for me personally was not included in the cost of tuition. Yoga teacher training is an investment in yourself, your career, your education. But if you're really serious about doing this, there are options that can make it more financially feasible. Many programs offer scholarships, work-study programs, payment plans, and different types of discounts. So once you've thought about what format might work best for your 200-hour yoga teacher training, it's also important to consider that your values and interests align with the program. First, there are many different kinds of yoga, so you'll obviously want to make sure that the certification is in a style of yoga that you're interested in, practice, and want to teach. Most trainings will focus on a certain style, like Vinyasa Flow or Ashtanga. For instance, my teacher training was in Power Flow, but it equipped me to teach slower to faster-paced Vinyasa flows, as well as touched on some different styles like restorative and Ashtanga. You can always take continuing education courses or additional teacher trainings after your initial 200-hour training to expand your toolkit and learn about some different styles, but make sure that your initial training is in a style that you are interested in. Additionally, make sure that you like and align with the lead instructor of the training. After all, you're going to be spending 200 hours with this person, so it's important that you trust them and you're confident that they can teach you. I'd highly recommend taking some yoga classes from the lead instructor before enrolling in the training so you can get to know them and their teaching style. Also, if the training program is offering an information session before enrollment, definitely go to that so you can ask any questions and get to know the instructors. If neither of these options are available, I would strongly recommend reaching out to schedule a phone call or some sort of meeting just so you can get to know that person and ask your questions. In addition to the style of yoga and the instructor, it's also important that the program's values align with your own. And with so many yoga teacher trainings out there, you're definitely allowed to be a little bit picky. For instance, if you learn best in smaller groups and you value that kind of individual attention from an instructor, then I would seek out a program that keeps its group sizes small. My yoga teacher training actually only had 6 people and 2 lead trainers, so I was able to connect with everyone really closely, which I really liked. You might also consider if the training has any sort of a business component. If you want to make a career out of teaching yoga, a little bit of information and time spent on things like insurance, pricing, and actually getting a class at a yoga studio can be super valuable. I felt really lucky that my training spent some time on business basics. With so many variations in yoga teacher trainings, you might be looking for something like an emphasis on philosophy, more of a focus on anatomy, or you might want to make sure that the program has a strong commitment to diversity. Once again, come back to your why, know your values, and don't be afraid to ask lots of questions about the program and the instructor. After all, you're paying them for their service, so you have every right to feel confident and informed about what you're making your investment in. There's tons of different 200-hour yoga teacher trainings that will each function a little bit differently, but I wanted to provide you with sort of a general overview of what you might expect to see in a 200-hour yoga teacher training. Once you enroll in your training, but before the training actually begins, you'll want to maintain your connection to your personal practice, engage with any information and updates that the instructor might send you, and do any required readings or other type of pre-work. Once your yoga teacher training begins, you can expect some type of mix of lectures, discussions, practice teaching, demonstrations, and discussions. Some topics that you can expect to see in your yoga teacher training include yoga asana and how to guide people's bodies into poses safely, effective cueing and communication, how to sequence a yoga class, a little bit of anatomy, as well as some yoga philosophy and history. You'll also probably have a pretty robust manual that'll guide you through the curriculum of the training. Additionally, you might be expected to take some yoga classes outside of the training hours, and you might have some homework assignments. Homework or not, you're definitely going to want to be reviewing and practice teaching when you're not with your group. Near the end of your teacher training, you'll likely have some sort of assessment to officially receive your certification. This could be leading a yoga class, a paper, or a written exam, or any combination of these things. And this is really just a way to make sure that you feel confident in the material that you were taught. These are just some of the basic elements that you can expect in a 200-hour yoga teacher training, but of course it will vary. Once you enroll in a yoga teacher training, be proud of yourself for taking such a big step on your yoga journey. And you can even comment down below letting me know so I can celebrate with you. I wanted to leave you off with a few final pieces of advice about taking a yoga teacher training and being a yoga teacher. First, it can be really easy to neglect your personal yoga practice once you become a yoga teacher. You'll be spending a lot of time and energy planning and teaching classes, but it's really important that you maintain that connection to your personal practice, not only for your own sense of peace and to take care of yourself, but I also firmly believe that you are a much better yoga teacher when you have a strong connection to your own practice. Second, remember that your 200-hour yoga teacher training is only the start. A 200-hour training provides you with baseline knowledge on how to safely lead a yoga class, but that's really just the start. So I'd encourage you to take any continuing education opportunities that you can. Third, imposter syndrome is a very real thing, especially for yoga teachers, and it might keep you from enrolling in a training or even leading a class once you're certified. If you're passionate about this practice and you really want to share it with others, don't let your perceived lack of experience or physical ability or anything like that keep you from sharing that. We made it through pretty much everything that I thought you should know about yoga teacher training. But if you still have questions, don't hesitate to comment down below, or you can reach out to me on social media, which are all linked in the description. That was a lot of information, so if you haven't grabbed your show notes from the description, make sure to do that so you can review what we talked about. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really had a lot of fun making this video and answering some questions that I commonly get asked about yoga teacher training. And I hope this information was really valuable to you as well. If so, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.